The 1970s gave us some of the most famous songs ever recorded: Hotel California, Dream On, Bohemian Rhapsody. But while those classics continue to dominate radio stations and streaming playlists, countless other masterpieces have slowly faded into the background. Not because they weren't great, not because they lacked talent, but because timing, trends, and commercial expectations often decide which songs become immortal and which become hidden treasures. Tonight, we're uncovering 5 remarkable songs from the 1970s that deserve far more recognition than they receive. Songs with incredible stories behind them. Songs that reveal artists taking creative risks, challenging expectations, and producing some of the finest music of their careers. Number 5, Minnie Riperton, When It Comes Down to It, 1975.
When it comes down to it.
Success can be a strange thing. Most artists spend years chasing it. Then once they achieve it, they discover that success often comes with expectations. For Minnie Riperton, that realization arrived shortly after Lovin' You became one of the biggest songs of the decade. Released in 1974, the song was an international sensation. Its gentle melody, intimate atmosphere, and Riperton's extraordinary vocal range helped send it to #1 in America and near the top of charts around the world. Naturally, her record label wanted more. A lot more.
When it comes down to it,
Epic Records immediately began searching for another Lovin' You, another soft, romantic ballad that could recreate the same commercial magic. From a business perspective, it made perfect sense. From an artistic perspective, Minnie Riperton hated the idea. She had no interest in repeating herself. Rather than creating a sequel to her biggest hit, she chose a much more difficult path. She evolved. With longtime collaborator Stevie Wonder unavailable, Riperton and her husband Richard Rudolph assembled an entirely new creative team. Producer Stuart Levine joined the project alongside jazz innovator Joe Sample and acclaimed songwriter Leon Ware, whose sophisticated approach had already helped shape some of Marvin Gaye's most celebrated work. The result was Adventures in Paradise, an album that moved far beyond the simplicity of Lovin' You and embraced a richer, jazz-infused soul, sound filled with subtle textures and emotional depth. And nowhere is that growth more evident than on When It Comes Down to It. Unlike the whimsical innocence that made her famous, this song reveals a more mature songwriter. The arrangement glides effortlessly between soul, jazz, and R&B influences, while Riperton delivers one of the most nuanced vocal performances of her career. There's confidence in the song, patience, wisdom. The performance feels less concerned with commercial success and more focused on artistic expression. Perhaps that's why the track never became a major hit. It wasn't designed to chase trends. It was designed to challenge expectations.
if we keep our calm high.
Today, songs like Inside My Love often receive most of the attention from Adventures in Paradise, and deservedly so. But When It Comes Down to It remains one of the album's hidden gems, a reminder that some artists become truly great only when they stop trying to repeat their greatest success. And in doing so, Minnie Riperton created one of the most underrated songs of the entire decade. Number 4, Idris Muhammad, Could Heaven Ever Be Like This, 1977.
I feel music, yeah.
The story of 1970s music is often told through rock bands: the Eagles, Fleetwood Mac, Led Zeppelin. But while those artists dominated album sales and radio airplay, another musical revolution was quietly taking place on dance floors across America. Disco was emerging, and with it came an entirely new way of thinking about rhythm. For some rock fans, disco became the enemy. By the end of the decade, the backlash had grown so intense that it sparked protests, record burnings, and endless debates about what real music should sound like. Yet hidden beneath the commercial success of mainstream disco acts was a collection of musicians doing something genuinely groundbreaking. One of them was Idris Muhammad. A respected jazz drummer with roots stretching back to New Orleans, Muhammad approached rhythm differently than most musicians of his era. He wasn't interested in simply keeping time. He wanted drums to tell the story. That philosophy reached its peak with Could Heaven Ever Be Like This? Released in 1977, the track felt unlike anything else on the radio. At more than 9 minutes long, it wasn't designed for commercial success. There was no obvious formula, no desperate attempt to create a chart hit, and no concern for radio-friendly running times. Instead, Muhammad and his collaborators created something far more ambitious, a sprawling fusion of jazz, funk, soul, and disco. The song unfolds gradually, layering hypnotic percussion, soaring strings, vibrant horns, and uplifting vocals into a groove that feels almost transcendent. But at the center of everything is Muhammad himself. His drumming doesn't simply support the music, it drives it, shapes it, elevates it. As Muhammad once explained, "I'm a musical drummer. I play the musical part of the song." That mindset transformed the drums from a background instrument into the star of the performance. And perhaps that's why the track has aged so remarkably well. Long before house music, long before electronic dance music, and long before modern DJs built careers around extended grooves, Could Heaven Ever Be Like This was already laying the foundation. Its DNA can be heard throughout decades of dance music that followed. Yet despite its influence, the song remains surprisingly overlooked outside dedicated music circles, which is extraordinary. Because this isn't merely a great disco record, it's a masterclass in rhythm, a celebration of musical freedom. And one of the most innovative dance recordings the 1970s ever produced. A song that asks a simple question in its title, and then spends 9 glorious minutes trying to answer it. Number 3. J.J. Cale, Magnolia, 1971.
Soft summer breeze.
The 1970s were filled with love songs. Some were grand declarations of passion. Others were dramatic tales of heartbreak and loss. And then there was Magnolia, a song so gentle, so understated, that it's easy to miss its brilliance entirely. Released in 1971 on J.J. Cale's debut album Naturally, Magnolia arrived during a decade overflowing with singer-songwriters competing for attention. James Taylor, Carole King, Cat Stevens, and countless others were creating deeply personal music, each bringing their own voice to the art of romance. Yet somehow, Cale managed to create something uniquely intimate.
Magnolia, you're sweet.
A song that feels less like a performance and more like a private thought whispered into the night. Built around a delicate melody and Cale's famously relaxed vocal delivery, Magnolia unfolds with remarkable restraint. There are no dramatic crescendos, no emotional outbursts, no attempts to overwhelm the listener. Instead, every note seems to drift effortlessly through the air, and that's precisely what makes it so powerful. The song captures longing in its purest form. Not obsession, not desperation, simply the quiet ache of missing someone, the feeling of carrying a memory that refuses to fade. Ironically, the song's greatest obstacle may have been J.J. Cale himself.
You drive on me, man.
When Naturally was released, most of the attention went to its B-side hit, Crazy Mama, which became Cale's only top 40 single in the United States. The success of that upbeat track largely overshadowed Magnolia, leaving one of the album's most beautiful compositions hidden in plain sight. Cale himself never seemed bothered. In fact, he reportedly viewed Magnolia as almost too melancholic compared to the laid-back style he was known for. But fans felt differently. As the years passed, Magnolia quietly built a reputation as one of the finest songs Cale ever wrote. Its emotional honesty proved timeless, its simplicity became its strength, and its influence spread far beyond its original audience.
I'm coming home to you.
Artists as diverse as Eric Clapton, John Mayer, and Beck would eventually record their own versions, each drawn to the song's effortless beauty. Perhaps that's the ultimate measure of a truly great song. Not how high it climbs the charts, but how long it stays in people's hearts. More than 50 years later, Magnolia remains one of the most tender and romantic songs of the entire decade, a forgotten masterpiece that grows more beautiful with every passing year. Number 2. Labi Siffre, Cannock Chase, 1972.
With my arms around my guitar.
Some songs tell stories, others capture moments, and every once in a while a song manages to do both. That was the magic of Cannock Chase. Unlike many of the era's biggest hits, Labi Siffre's masterpiece wasn't built around romance, heartbreak, or commercial appeal. Instead, it emerged from something far more personal: the struggle to keep moving forward when life feels impossibly heavy. By the early 1970s, Siffre was navigating a difficult period. Like many artists, he faced rejection, uncertainty, and moments of deep self-doubt. Success rarely arrives in a straight line, and the emotional toll of pursuing a creative life often left him searching for peace wherever he could find it. His solution was surprisingly simple. He went walking.
Just for me.
Again and again, he would leave the city behind and head into the countryside with his partner Peter. They shared a philosophy: keep walking uphill. Eventually, the roads would disappear, the fences would end, and the world would open up. One day, that journey brought him to Cannock Chase, a vast area of natural woodland in England. There, sitting alone in the back seat of his car with a guitar in his arms while rain tapped softly against the windows, inspiration arrived. And from that quiet moment came one of the most vivid songs of the decade. What makes Cannock Chase remarkable is its simplicity. There are no dramatic twists, no grand revelations.
I thought my day would never come.
Instead, Siffre transforms ordinary observations into something profound. The landscape becomes a source of comfort, nature becomes a companion, and reflection becomes a pathway toward healing. The song feels almost cinematic. Listeners can see the rain, feel the solitude, experience the calm that slowly emerges from stillness. Perhaps that's why the song has endured long after many bigger hits faded away. Because beneath its gentle melody lies a universal truth. Sometimes the answers we search for aren't found in success, recognition, or achievement. Sometimes they're found in silence, in nature.
Maybe it won't, but I'll have fun.
In taking a step back from the noise of life and simply paying attention to the world around us. Over the decades, Cannock Chase has gradually earned the appreciation it always deserved, becoming a quiet anthem for listeners who value thoughtful songwriting and emotional honesty. It's not merely an underrated song. It's a reminder that some of the greatest art begins with a single person, a rainy afternoon, and a moment of reflection. Number 1. Sixto Rodriguez, I Think of You, 1971.
We shared out here.
Some artists are underrated, and then there's Sixto Rodriguez. For decades, Rodriguez represented one of the greatest mysteries in music history. While audiences in places like South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand embraced him as a legendary songwriter, much of America barely knew he existed. It seemed almost impossible. Here was a songwriter whose lyrical insight was frequently compared to Bob Dylan, a musician capable of capturing hope, disappointment, romance, and social commentary with remarkable elegance. Yet somehow his records barely sold. His concerts never materialized, and after just 2 albums, he quietly disappeared from the music industry.
I think of you.
At the time, nobody could have imagined that decades later, the documentary Searching for Sugar Man would introduce Rodriguez to the world and reveal the extraordinary influence he had unknowingly accumulated overseas. But long before that rediscovery came one of the most beautiful songs of his career. I Think of You. Recorded for his 1971 album Coming From Reality, the song emerged during a period when Rodriguez was making one final attempt to reach an audience. Leaving Detroit behind, he traveled to London's famous Lansdowne Studios, where producer Steve Rowland helped transform his folk-based songwriting into something richer and more atmospheric. The result was an album filled with lush arrangements, subtle psychedelia, and moments of breathtaking tenderness.
As they begun with thoughts.
And nowhere was that tenderness more apparent than on I Think of You. Unlike many romantic songs that rely on grand declarations, Rodriguez takes a quieter approach. His voice softens, the arrangement breathes, and the song unfolds like a private conversation. At its heart, it's a tribute to his first wife, Rema K. Barrett. Not a dramatic love story, not a passionate obsession, but something arguably more meaningful: companionship. The simple comfort of waking up beside someone who matters. The quiet certainty that love exists even when the world refuses to cooperate. And perhaps that's what makes the song so moving today.
And think of you.
Because Rodriguez was recording it at a moment when his dreams of musical success were beginning to fade. The industry wasn't paying attention. The records weren't becoming hits. The future looked uncertain. Yet rather than surrendering to bitterness, he focused on what remained valuable. Love, connection, the people who stayed. In retrospect, I Think of You feels almost prophetic. A song written by a man who believed he had failed as a musician, unaware that history would eventually recognize his genius. Today, it stands as one of the most beautiful hidden treasures of the 1970s. A song of humility, a song of gratitude.
And think of you.
And perhaps the perfect ending to a list of underrated masterpieces. Because if there's one lesson hidden within Rodriguez's story, it's this. Sometimes the world takes a very long time to recognize greatness. But truly great songs have a way of surviving long enough to be discovered.